Welcome back, everyone, to the Dr. Meade Show. This is actually part 2 of a show that I thought was only going to be one part. I'm with my patient and friend, Peter Maier, who's an unbelievable talent, a unique artist in his own right. But we started the last show talking about life and talking about how sometimes we just go through life too quick. We don't slow down and smell the roses. And in our orthopedic practice, that happens an awful lot. We do knee replacements. I don't get to know the patients, how we affect their lives. We put a new joint in. It gives them a new lease on life. And they often want to tell us about that, but we're off to the next patient and the next problem. So I appreciate you coming in and sharing that part of the story. That was in part 1, so we're not going to repeat that. And I'm more fascinated by your artistic talent. So we did do a total knee replacement surgery. We call it resurfacing. We did it as an outpatient. We did it last November. Pete was absolutely phenomenal. He followed our postoperative rehab course, although unique as it may be. He did his own therapy, some of it in industrial centers, and he had his own addition to our multimodal pain management program, but it worked for him. Literally, we saw him 2 visits and discharged him in December. But true to my word, I said I was going to visit Pete's fine art studio, which I did a month or so ago, and then I said, I'm going to have you on our show. Your work is so phenomenal. Pete has shown his work around the world. It's been in museums all around the world. In brief summary, if you missed the first show, and Pete can talk about it, he came from the automotive industry, and he used that technology in painting. He paints on large aluminum backgrounds and uses automotive paint. It looks, you'll see, it is so realistic. People think they're photographs, but I think that's an accurate description, Pete. Is that correct? Yeah. So last time we left off the show, and you were talking about, you almost have a lifetime supply of automotive paint, and somehow you have a warehouse full of aluminum backing to do pictures. But I think that's where we left off. And I think we're looking at a self-portrait that has to be very, very difficult to do, but that's absolutely phenomenal. We were looking at some split screens, and I just want to show another one. We did the Bob Dylan screen. Here's another fascinating picture. So, you know, I'm just interested in how you think, Pete. This is what I don't have time to reflect on in the audience. You know why? Because I would be hours behind, but I love to do this. And a lot of people, I do get behind you because I love,
can tell, you do.
I love to talk to people about their life and what they do. But tell me about this split face Abraham Lincoln.
There's another good story. Mort Cooperman, a good friend of mine who used to own the Lone Star Cafe in New York City, the famous cafe, with all the entertainers and whatever. He had an idea, so he told me. He said, I think you should take your split image, like you did for your face, and I think you should do a split image of Lincoln. And I said, that's kind of interesting. And this is where things change. The movie Lincoln was being filmed by Spielberg. I also did Three Good Men after this, which is Spielberg, Schindler, and Elie Wiesel. It's called Three Good Men. Wow. Man's Inhumanity to Man. Huge painting. Spielberg has never seen these. So I got an idea. I didn't want to do Lincoln, and that led to this. I call it the 13th, because he did the 13th Amendment for the black people. And what I did is I had Lincoln. I appropriated the photo of him from the Smithsonian. And I went online. I'm really not good at that, but I found a Watusi lady dressed up, a young girl in all his fancy garb. So I took the garb off, and you can see I put a little chain on her neck. I did that. I put a tear here, and I used my front view of Lincoln and the side view of the young slave girl. And if you look at the top of Dylan, it had 2 white. This one has 2 black. Yes. That's my contemporary version of a portrait. It makes it look like it's set back. It almost looks photographic, but it's very contemporary. So what I thought here, we got an old man who was president of the United States with a lot of power, 1800s, late 1800s. He has wrinkles. He's in black and white. He's wearing a suit. So there's a lot of opposites in play here. Here's a young slave girl. She's in color, okay? She has no power, all right? I put a chain on her instead of a suit. I got another little thing hanging up there. And I got her looking down, not at you, like Lincoln. So she's enslaved and she's not doing real well, you would think. Plus I put a tear come down her eye. That's the 13th.
Wow.
That's how to, so it was shown, and it was an expensive painting at the time. It was about 120 grand. And a guy from a Russian Jewish oligarch came to this Palm Beach show, and he wanted to buy it. But my rep, I was back in the Poconos, and she called me and she said, "He's serious about this." I said, "Well, does he know the price?" She said, "Oh, money's not a problem." So we did it, and she crated it up. It now hangs in his mansion in Vienna. So a kid from Brooklyn does this thing, and it's in a multi-million-dollar mansion in Vienna of a slave girl in Lincoln. Crazy, crazy world.
But I just look inside your mind and think of the subtle things that are in this painting
Yeah, now you
and
know.
how you thought of it.
Yep,
Peter, it's
yep.
absolutely,
That's a big painting too.
that's amazing.
That's 90 by 60.
And that's in Geneva.
Yeah,
Correct.
in his mansion. Yeah.
This is 18 foot long.
That's life size. That's Jeff
That's-
Gordon's race car.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to do him at speed, and I did it not only because of Jeff, and I know all these guys. They're pretty good friends of mine, him, Ray Abraham, Jeff Gordon, Rick Hendricks. I wanted to do it because DuPont gave me the paint, and they sponsored his car. Well, DuPont didn't get to buy it. Here we go again. It was some kind of, I don't know what happened there, but that is also at the Butler Institute of American Art. NASCAR didn't even get to buy it. They were bidding on it. It's the only race car in a fine art museum in the country.
Wow.
That's life size.
It reminds me of this photograph. So
Okay.
it looks like a video picture of a horse running. So
We got a couple of photographers like Sam here. You couldn't do this like I did it with a video camera or a still. What I did is I got a still picture, that's American Pharaoh crossing the finish line with the jockey. Okay, so I got a still picture off the internet. I changed it, and I got a running image of Secretariat in black and white. It is American Pharaoh because you could tell by the blue nose piece and by the jockey's colors. That's their colors. So what I did is I put him on the horse, and I did the whole background out of focus at speed, which you could do with a camera. Here comes the different trick. The jockey, I used the same speed stripes coming off of him. So a lot of focus. Because the jockey, when they ride, they're not moving up real hard. Their ass sits in one space, one place. While the horse, when he's galloping, the head goes up and down, the body goes up. So those speed, I went like this. So they're totally different. When you stand in front of it, this is the largest painting I've ever done. It's 196 by 90 high. When you're standing in front of it, you think this horse is moving at full speed.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I call it realism abstracted, because it's real, but I abstracted it. So this is a unique piece for realism, and it's a hard one to sell to museums and people because they don't understand it quite, but they will. We'll get them. We'll get them.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Look, I'd get out of the way if I was in front of this horse. It's that realistic.
If you're looking at it from an angle, from a frontal side view of the front of the horse, he looks like he's going to run you down. It really does. It's amazing.
I mean, the stories are absolutely fascinating behind these pictures. And this just looks into your eyes, and that's what it's called, looking into your eyes.
My son I never had, Mike Nicosia, this is one of his favorites. You can see here I did the eyes last again.
Yes.
I got the face in complete focus, and then I painted the rest of his head out of focus. I spent 2 days on each eye, and they have a depth to them. I don't know how many different shades I used of the 8 different colors, But when you're looking at him and he's looking at you, he's staring you down.
Yes. And what kind of monkey is that?
That's a Japanese snow monkey.
Ah, I should have known that. And I saw you had other monkeys. I mean,
I got the the gorilla. I just did one of the gorilla arms up in the air. I have an affinity for animals because when I was growing up in Brooklyn, I was 6 years old, growing up Flatbush, and we had a fireman up around the corner who got permission from the city of Brooklyn Borough to have the nativity scene in his backyard by his garage. Small house, but he had a nice back. And he had animals in his farm up in upstate Pennsylvania. And a week before Christmas, he'd bring them down. So I'd go over there and help him with the hay and the crap, clean it up. And I was 6. And he brought out lunch, him and his wife. And I was there till 5. I got there at 6 in the morning. I just have an affinity. I fell in love with animals. I go to zoos. I don't like to go to zoos because I don't like them behind cages. I did another chimp. That's a good painting, and that one relates to this. And the eyes are looking at you again. But this one says, "Do you see in me what I see in you? Are we related?" We're looking at animals in a cage. No, this guy's looking at us, and it's a huge painting. That's in a Palm Beach mansion. So that's that's why I paint animals. And I made a lot of money painting animals, and I figured I got to do something, for them. And I'm a big conservation with animals, all that kind of stuff. And I don't shoot. I will not kill an animal as it's necessary if they're in trouble or whatever. But this one I got a gorilla, and it's 5 times life size. I got a gorilla like this. I took his head off, so it's just 2 arms coming up. It says, the title is Pray, Protect, Respect, Cherish All Animals. That's it. Very simple, but it makes a statement, just like that does. Most of my paintings make a statement.
So Peter, thanks for sharing. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have a special gift for you here in the audience. Peter is going to show us one of the paintings that he brought with us. So stick with us. You're not going to want to miss this. Welcome back. I'm with world-renowned fine realist artist Peter Maier. And here we are standing in front of a painting that he brought into the studio. And you could see, and this is a medium-sized painting for Peter, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But you can see the enormity and the scale of this picture. Tell me, I mean, the fine detail that I'm looking at is phenomenal. What kind of horse is this, Peter?
This is a Lipizzaner. This is one of the most famous horse breeds in the world.
Yes.
They do all the military moves, and like they used to do back in the Roman times and the whatever. They're military horses, but I mean they can jump 5 feet in the air with a human on them.
In battle, these were used in battle historically.
Yeah.
Or you tell me this was a type of horse that Patton trained on?
Yeah. He had a Lipizzaner when he was over there. He trained in their arena. It's it's not small, but it's not big by any means. Sawdust on the floor. Beautiful animals, very, very strong, you can see. They're not like a draft horse, and they're not like a race horse. They're just powerful. You had to carry armor on these things.
Yeah. What was your motivation to paint this one?
Again, my affinity with animals, but I came across this breed. And I said, that'd be something else. So I just studied it, and I did two different animals. I got the photographs myself, and then I just said, I got to do this, and I wanted to be real stark, because they are white. They're born black, by the way, and they turn white. So I wanted on my black background. As I said before, I usually don't paint backgrounds, white, black. No background per se with things happening, because I'm not a wildlife artist. I don't paint like that. I want to concentrate totally on the animal. And I thought a side view with the big neck and that beautiful eye, I thought it'd be kind of interesting. So that's how this one came about.
It's beautiful. The detail around his eyes, the imperfection of his lower eyelid, these little, And
what I did is I backlit this. A lot of this, It's a little tricky. I put that shadow in there, which it probably wouldn't have been because most of the light was hitting them from this way. But I backlit it. So, stuff like that looks real, but that's the artistic touch,
Yeah.
you know.
Tell me about the tours you've done with these pictures. Where have you taken some of your...
Well, they've been shown here in a lot of museums, major museums, probably more mid-tier, third level tier museums. I haven't been in the Met or the Modern, but in Europe, I've been in about 14 major museums: Balboa, the Guggenheim, Spain, the Kunsthalle, Germany, the Baron Musen in Germany, a couple in England, 14 in all. So I've had my work's been shown all over the world.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I just appreciate you coming here, bringing this photograph, but most importantly, yeah, I appreciate the stories because I just love the stories of my patients. What we do, we take for granted, and then you go off, we never see again. But to know that, you have the physical ability now to climb ladders and make these things makes me very happy.
All because of you.
Well,
let's face it.
Let me
and we
tell you,
became good friends on top of it.
yeah,
It's amazing.
We have a team. So I'm not going to let you go yet. I still have a few more paintings that I want to hear the stories
Okay.
about, if that's okay with you.
No problem.
Okay. Being from the Lehigh Valley, one of the most famous and oldest corporations is Just Born. I've treated a lot of patients for Just Born. It's not unusual after doing a knee operation, they'll bring me a 5-pound bag of hot tamales. But one of the most famous candies, I guess, from Just Born is Peeps. And I came across this picture of Peeps, Peter. What's the story behind this?
Well, this is another crazy story. David Schaffer and Russ Bourne, that's where the name came, Bourne, Just Born. Russ Bourne's father invented the Peeps machine. They still use it today, as far as I know, because I was on tour. David gave me a tour. So they were co-CEOs. Russ retired. Russ, when I was down there on the tour with my wife, Ross came into my trailer and asked if I would do a commission. And I said, well, I really don't do commissions because people have a preconceived idea of what they want. They're not the artist. So I usually draw up some ideas and I put them together, I paste them, and I'll show them to you. Well, he came up with David. David was all ready to go. He goes, oh man, this is beautiful. I had a beautiful drawing, only in black and white. And Russ says, we got graphic designers down there. So this is a known story. And right then, my wife thought, I'm going to throw my brushes at him and say, you go do the damn thing. But I didn't. He's a lawyer. He's still with us. He's retired. So one thing led to another, and Jan says, I think you should do that painting anyway. So I did it. It's 76 high by 60 wide. And what I wanted something different. So I got a live little chick up on top, and I did it like the classic pyramid. So if you draw a straight line on the side, the two corners of each side of the box intersect with the top of the chick's head. It's a classic design. And I did it very contemporary on a black background. You can see the shadows in the back of like a light green. So it's sitting on a black and it's on a black background. So I did it, and I figured I better call David and Sue because they already had two of my paintings. And they drove up and they walked through the front door, which you did. You saw my studio. It's a big studio. And all you hear is, oh my God. So I said, I think they're going to like it. So David looks at it, and David's a quiet man. He doesn't get real excited. He's real mellow. And so Sue, but she's a little more excitable. And he says, well, Pete, it's beautiful. So-and-so, I gave him the price and with his percentage off because they own other ones and not the gallery prices. So he's like, I'm going to have to run this by my partner, Ross. Sue goes right up into his face and goes, why don't you run it by your real partner? So I knew I had it sold, but they bought it. He called me back 3 hours later, said, Ross loves it. So you try to figure it out. Russ didn't like the drawing, but now he likes this. They had the mayor of Bethlehem and about 180 people at the unveiling at Just Born. I was the second to last to speak. David was after me, and then Ross. And the father was sitting there. It was 96. Man just passed away. From Brooklyn, right down the street from where I went to Pratt, and I was born in Flatbush. The guy almost had tears in his eyes when they unveiled it. And then they asked me to say some words. I told them that exact story. And when I did, you could see Ross, he's thinking, what the hell's Maier going to say now? And the audience just cracked up, okay? He comes up to me later, gives me a big hug. He says, you're a first-class act, Pete. You know that? And we became super friends. So like when I go down, now it hangs in the lobby. Everybody thinks it's a photograph. When I go see him, I'll always ask if David or Russ are there. You see what they give me, just like a 20-pound band of Peeps and this. And I said, David, I can't eat it all. I'll give it to the kids in the neighborhood. So that's the story of the Peeps.
That is a great story. So what was the impetus behind this?
It's another big painting. That's the same size as the horse.
Oh, yeah.
75%.
Yeah, it's
okay,
big.
I did this one and the feet. That's a male. That's a Weihenstuppenhaber. That's a Swiss, the ladies who wear those little funny hats in Switzerland, in the Alps. This is he's about this big. This is the male. The male birds are always prettier, So being that he looks like this, he reminded me of a Vegas showgirl and a male in drag. So that's how I got the name Drag Queen.
I love that.
And the female is she's pretty, but not like this. And her name is Jaja, because she looks like a showgirl from Vegas.
So the females in many animal species are never as attractive as males.
It's amazing.
Except in the human species.
Yep,
So thank God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you or I were the most attractive people in our species?
No, I don't think it'd work.
I don't think we'd have any offspring. So let's do one more, and this interests me.
This is
Nevermore.
This is based on Edgar Allan Poe. Skulls always intrigued me.
Yes.
Now this is a huge painting. You can see me standing next to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how high this is.
You need good knees to do this, Peter.
Yeah. I did this when I had a bad knee before I met you. So I did the skulls, and then that's a raven skull on the lower portion, and I was learning how to do gold and silver and variegated leaf, and a good friend of mine, Andrew Capuccio, goes by Pooch. Everybody knows him in the Lehigh Valley. He does pen striping on cars, gold leaf lettering on fire engines, the real sophisticated stuff. So I asked him to be co-painter in this thing. He did all the pen striping and the gold leaf. We worked that together. And I did the skulls and the bleeding hearts. And up on the skull, it says, quote, the Raven. And my wife came out and said, hey, Pooch, you don't spell quote that way. It's Q-U-O-T-H-E. No, it doesn't have an H in it, Pooch. So he says, I beg to differ. And he showed the quote from the poem. So, Nevermore. That's Nevermore.
So, Peter, I started the show because I wanted to slow down and appreciate the human aspect of our knee replacements. And you allowed us to do that today. You allowed us to come into your life and see what you do. When I don't have time to do this in the office, this was a gift to me. I can't thank you enough for doing this. You're an amazing artist with huge bandwidth. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for being my friend. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for the new knee.
You got it. So that ends the show, folks. Thanks for joining us. This was one of the most unique and exciting shows for me to do, and that's because my fellow patient was unbelievable. He's one of the most unique and talented people. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show.